Hey guys, welcome to the PI podcast. We're on episode 3 of this NFL podcast. All things NFL, all things sports, everything related to the NFL. Ian, how's your week?
The week's been good. The week's been good. I've been really excited to record this episode. I've been thinking about it all week long.
Yeah. So we have a lot of topics this week, so we're just gonna dive into it. We have a bunch of topics to go into. So first of all, if you guys watched the podcast, at the end of the last podcast, we went over who our top 10 quarterbacks were in the NFL right now. And we didn't tell you guys any reasoning behind it, but today in this podcast we will. So, Ian, I'm gonna start you off. I'm gonna start off with your
Uh,
list, and
all right. Okay.
explain your list.
All right. So Patrick Mahomes is going to be my number one and probably going to be my number one for a few years now. He's going to have to lose all of his weapons probably for me to rank him any lower. He's just an amazing athlete. They've got a perfect system for him and the weapons they have. So he's probably going to be my number one for a while. Josh Allen took a huge, I mean, he was already good last year, but he took a huge improvement this year, got even better. And now the AFC is looking like a super open conference. Like you have no idea who's going to win over there year in and year out now. Rodgers was number three, probably lower than what some people would put him since he won the MVP. Um, But with his first game against the Saints, throwing those two interceptions and having a terrible game, I can't have him higher than Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, where really Josh Allen's only fault was against the Jaguars, not being able to beat the Jaguars and not being able to score points against the Jaguars. So that's probably his big knock. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, he had a terrible first game. He bounced back, but then he also missed a game with COVID. So that's why he's probably lower than what a lot of people would have him. Some people probably have him number one, number two. Then I got Justin Herbert. He's carrying that team kind of. He's got some weapons on offense, but the defense is terrible. Um, the fact that they were on the cusp of a playoff win, and then the defense shut down in the overtime and let Oakland score. Then I got Dak Prescott. In my opinion, if Burrow didn't have the year he had, Prescott would have won Comeback Player of the Year by a landslide if it wasn't for Joe Burrow making it to the Super Bowl. He's also another one. I mean, he gets the job done. He does have a lot of weapons, which why he's not higher because he's got Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Amari. I already said Amari. Um, C.D. Lamb, Zeke, Tony Pollard, Dale Schultz. I mean, they're loaded. They have the top offensive line, so he would probably be a little higher if he had to bear a little bit more weight of carrying the team. Number 6, I got Joe Burrow. What's not to say about him? The dude, once he got matched with Jamar Chase, I mean, he owned the AFC North. There's nothing else I can really say about that. He deserves to be in the top 10. And then I got Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray probably would have been higher if they wouldn't have fell into a little bit of a slump at the end of the season. Because he's a dynamic player. We're going to end up talking about him a little bit today with his contracts, which is going to be exciting to talk about. And I got Matt Stafford. Again, he's got a lot of weapons, so he didn't have to carry the load. But we've seen what he did in Detroit. We know what kind of quarterback he is. We know how tough he is. He'd probably be a little higher, like I said, if he had to carry a little bit more of his team. Um, and obviously has a good defense. So even if Matt Stafford threw an interception, the defense held up. Then I got Matt Ryan at number 9. Again, he's one of them guys. You're gonna like what I have to say about him. He's a top quarterback in the league, and I don't understand why he gets so much hate. I understand at the quarterback position when the team fails, it always goes back to the quarterback almost, whether it's the defense giving up points or not. You got to think look at what just happened in Atlanta. They had Julio Jones at one point. I mean, a couple years ago. He's gone. Calvin Ridley gone. He's throwing the ball to a rookie tight end, which he's going to be a good tight end in the league. But then he's making some guys that wouldn't be a top 4 receiver on a team, and Zacchaeus, and I mean he's making those players better, and that's what Aaron Rodgers does. He's got guys like Allen Lazard that he's making look like top 20 wide receivers sometimes with scoring 2 and 3 touchdowns a game. So that's why Matt Ryan's in my top 10, and then Derek Carr, he's another one of the guys. With the way the season went, you could argue that the Jaguars were the worst coached franchise this year. But the Raiders are a top second in that when your head coach gets fired for being racist, and then your number one draft pick gets arrested, and then you have another draft pick get arrested midway through the season, and your special teams coach is your head coach. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but that's just not a recipe for success. And the fact that they made the playoffs, you got to give Derek Carr credit there. And then the two I left off, Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson. I kind of went over it last week, but if they wouldn't have gotten hurt, they'd be in my top 10. Probably Derek Carr would have been knocked out. But that's my list.
That's a very good list. We have the same players on our list, and some of them are pretty close to each other, anyways. So we have some pretty good lists going on. Let us know what you guys think, your guys' list in the comment section below, and let us know what you think of our list as well. So first of all, in my list, I have Patrick Mahomes. He's a dynamic player. Like Ian said about Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes is another dynamic player. And he's a physically gifted and talented, probably the most gifted and talented quarterback we've ever seen in the NFL ever, in NFL history. Like, he can make all the throws that you want a quarterback to make, and then some throws you just can't even imagine that he'd make.
Yeah, and last year's Super Bowl, he had the one where he was falling on the ground and the receiver dropped it. But that would have been the best play in NFL history.
That would have been the best play and best throw ever in NFL history. There's no way you can be leaning in before falling and throwing the ball on your side. And how did he get it that accurate in there? That's
hits him right in the hands.
Incredible. I don't think we're gonna see an NFL talent like that in another 20 to 30 years. Yeah. And number 2, I have Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did win MVP this year. He's not above Mahomes because Mahomes is just physically more talented and gifted than Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers is an amazing quarterback, and that's why I have him at 2. Ian mentioned that first game he didn't have a very good game, but after that game he kind of took the NFC North all over, like he's been doing the last 4 to 5 years, and I know these teams in NFC North, the Lions, the Bears, the Vikings, they're not the greatest teams, but I mean, if you're gonna be a really good quarterback in the NFL, you have to carry your team, and he's making Allen Lazard look better, and he's an all-pro receiver in Davante Adams. At number 3, I have Josh Allen. Me and Ian switched it up a little bit. His is Allen Rodgers, mine's Rodgers Allen. But Josh Allen just had a really amazing season, and you could tell that in that playoff game. We've mentioned that playoff game a couple of times now, and it's been really, really fun to watch him, and he's just grown as a player. He's not up there with Rodgers and Mahomes just because there's some games in regular season he just made awful mistakes. And especially in the Falcons game, he had 3 or 4 interceptions, and they were all horrible decisions. He'd just throw it, and he was fighting for a playoff spot still with the New England Patriots at that point. At number 4, I have Russell Wilson. He did get injured most of the season this year, but I still think Russell Wilson is a smart and he's a dangerous quarterback. He's been known to throw questionable passes in recent years. There was a game a year or 2 ago against the Rams, I want to say, And he literally didn't know where to go. He was about to get sacked, so he just threw it up in the air, and it almost became a pick six. And but Russell Wilson, at the end of the day, he's an incredible passer. He can make throws on a run. He can escape the pocket like almost no one does in the NFL. And number 5, we have someone kind of like him in Kyler Murray. And going into the 2019 NFL draft, as soon as he was drafted, I had a feeling that he was going to be an amazing quarterback in the future. And Kyler Murray is showing it. He's super fast. I want to say he is almost just as fast as Lamar Jackson, if not faster. Because he's small and he's short, but his feet, he moves so quick. He's so agile. Mm-hmm. And he can make every single throw. Like, you don't even expect a 5'10" quarterback to make that throw. Even the deep balls especially. At number 6, I have my quarterback, Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan's up here on this list because Matt Ryan's still an amazing quarterback. I don't think he's diminished. This year, Calvin Ridley left, Ian said as well. He mentioned it. Julio Jones leaving as well. And also, he's gotten these other receivers step up, like Russell Gage, Olamide Skias. Those names don't ever pop up if Matt Ryan's not the quarterback. If it's the backup quarterback, those names never get brought up. But he's making Russell Gage look good. Russell Gage is a good player as well. He can make really good catches. But Matt Ryan makes those teams look better. And he's never had a defense in his career. And still puts up these stats. And still finds a way to win games. That's just different for a quarterback standing. Number 7, we have Lamar Jackson. I think he's a dynamic, the fastest quarterback in the NFL. I think the offense that he's running with John Harbaugh, he's just on a different level. I said it before, he's like a even better mobile and accurate Cam Newton. But Lamar Jackson, he just runs the ball well. He knows the offense very well, and this year he showed he can come back multiple times. And then he got injured late in the season, and that's why he's lower down on this list because I haven't seen anything from his accuracy. It improved a little this year, but still, I don't think his accuracy is the best of the best. So that's why he's a 7. At number 8, I have Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert, he's pretty high on this list. I could change him to like 11 or something. But Justin Herbert, just one play I'm going to mention. 50-yard dime in the middle of the field to his receiver. He just threw that thing 50 to 60 yards in the air. Just like nothing. And Justin Herbert, he's making everything happen with kind of a shaky offensive line and no defense, like Ian said. At number 8, at number 9, I have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, he's tough as hell, and he played his heart out in the Super Bowl. And with Jamar Chase, like Ian said, he just goes off the board. And I think if they find him a good offensive line, I think he can run it back again. I think he'll win this time, honestly, because he makes smart decisions. And I think he's gonna be a good quarterback for a long time. At number 10, we have Matthew Stafford. And now I was thinking about switching this back and forth, but Stafford is a decent quarterback. This year, he's made that offense even more explosive than when Jared Goff was on that team. And I think that was the missing piece. They won the Super Bowl this year. That was their missing piece that they needed, and they got it. And look what happened. They automatically won the Super Bowl. He's a physically talented, strong arm quarterback, and I think that he deserves to be at least in the top 15. I think he's not up there with the greats, but he's decent enough to help you win games, and he can get you to the Super Bowl like he did this year. Yeah. So that is our top 10 quarterbacks list. And let us know what you guys like about it. If you guys would change anything, do let us know. And,
I do want to say, after listening, Russell Wilson I had as an honorable mention, but kind of unfair for me to put him there. I think 4 is too high this season with how much he was hurt, but at the same time, look at how bad the Seattle Seahawks were without him. Like, they were terrible.
I saw Geno Smith over there when it's backup. He looked decent. Like he didn't look like the
He
Jets
looked
Geno
decent at
Smith.
times.
I mean, I think the Panthers probably should have tried to take him instead of Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
Maybe they would have had a better chance. Who knows? But Geno Smith, he learned a lot of things in Seattle, but
yeah,
their offense was not the same,
it
and
wasn't.
their
No.
defense wasn't that great this year either. So it kind of
That's
didn't
because
help them.
Russell Wilson, when the play breaks down, that's when he's at his best because he knows when to roll out of the pocket and he can throw it on a dime while running out of the pocket. He can make people miss, and that's something Geno Smith can do. He's mobile enough to get the job done, but Russell Wilson's just a completely different animal.
Oh, yeah, Russell Wilson is just. I mean, I've seen so many crazy plays from him. And going on to recent news, the NFL Combine was just here. At 40-yard dashes, quick tryouts, and all those things were happening this week. And we have a couple notes on the Combine notes. We're gonna go over some players real quick, and yeah, and one player I'd like to mention right away is someone that actually ran the 40 as a D lineman, ran a 4.78, which is an half of a second faster than Patrick Mahomes and faster than Baker Mayfield and like 2 steps faster than Jameis Winston. In Jordan
Yeah.
Davis from Georgia. That man, when I watched him on the national championship game and I watched some highlights of him, he wrecked that interior line. He was a complete monster on that line. He's the biggest guy on the team. And hopefully that transfers over to the NFL. But with this 40 time, is going to be a game changer D lineman for any team.
Yeah, I really like the speed. I actually have something pulled up here, and going forward, we'll kind of look up like what's allowed copyright wise because I know the NFL like blocks a lot of their like videos and stuff being used. So like playing clips from the NFL is like frowned upon. But I got a chart here for J.J. Watt and Jordan Davis, both of their combines. Um, J.J. Watt was obviously 2011, Jordan Davis 11 years later, 2022. Jordan Davis is 1 inch taller, 51 pounds heavier, and he ran a 4.78, and J.J. Watt ran a 4.91.
That's just insane. That is not heard of at all.
Yeah, insane. And I know a lot of people are saying it doesn't matter what a D lineman can run on a 40. When you have quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, you need to be able to be quick on your feet. And this is the D lineman. He's going to be a top 15 pick. I know I've seen some Charger fans on Twitter today. They want him at 17, but I don't think he lasts till 17. Not after what he just did in the combine.
I think he drops to 8, and the Falcons pick him up if they don't see any other edge rusher that does it. Imagine him with
Hey,
Grady Jarrett in the interior line. I mean,
that'd
I
be a
think
good
we
pickup.
finally have something pass rush wise because the Falcons have never had that in years.
Yeah, and the Falcons don't need to really worry about offense. I
They
mean,
don't.
they do because they have to replace Calvin Ridley somehow.
If Calvin really doesn't stay.
If he doesn't come back, which we don't know what's going to happen with him. But it'd be interesting to see. I think the Falcons go heavy defense.
I think so
Maybe a
too.
running back.
I really
Maybe a
think.
running back late.
I think they do draft an O lineman late and maybe a wide receiver, and possibly a running back, like you said. But definitely another person that was on draft. He's a DB, and he ran one of the fastest in combine history for a DB. Kaelin Barnes ran a 4.23 time, and I don't even know what to say. That's insane.
We're going to be getting his combine card in Madden. He's going to have 99 speed.
Yeah, I hope so. If he does, then I'm writing. Yeah, Kaelin Barnes. I don't know too much about him, but he's a corner DB in the draft, and just by looking at this, I think his draft stock went up a little bit, and I think he's gonna be I think he's gonna be a late first round, early second round, possibly pick.
Yeah,
And
that's fair to say.
yeah. We just talked about quarterbacks, and our quarterback list. Ian, is the quarterback salary too high?
Well, all the teams right now that are trying to push for a contention spot that are not on rookie deals, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to drop people. If they want to keep Aaron Rodgers, they have to drop people. The Chiefs, we're going to talk about Tyrann Mathieu in a little bit. They have to drop players to keep Patrick Mahomes on his salary. Now, granted, they did a good job pushing the salary back so that way the first couple of years of his 10-year, $500 million deal, it's not screwing them this early. But I personally think it's too high if you want to be a contender. And we've seen a perfect example of what a quarterback should do in the man Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, he takes pay cuts just so the team can get better. Like I don't he doesn't ask for the top quarterback salary, and that helps his team even more. That's why he's in so many Super Bowls, because he's for his team. He's not for money. He
Mm-hmm.
just wants to win rings. And at the end of the day, that's what teams need to do. And if you want to win a Super Bowl, it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm good at this game. I'm good at the NFL. So I should be paid more than other people I think I'm better than." But at
Yeah,
the end of
it's hard.
it's very
It's
hard.
really hard because they're taking up almost 25% of their team salary cap when they do this.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that nowadays these quarterbacks get paid so much. And I think, honestly, if the quarterbacks didn't have that much pay, I think we'd see a lot more teams making it to the playoffs, or teams that we didn't think would make it are making it to the playoffs just because are able to afford other players in free agency and able to do stuff in the draft as well.
Yeah, that's really fair. Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, they're both on the I think no, Lamar's on his last year, right?
Yeah, I believe
Going
so.
into his last year, and Kyler Murray's on his fourth year. But they're both wanting more. Lamar hasn't really came out and said he wants more money and top dollar and all this, but Kyler Murray's agent has came out and said he deserves top money.
Yeah. I think if a quarterback can be paid $40 million, I think that's not pushing the limit. I think that might be a good set point to,
Yeah,
if you have if you have a really good quarterback. I mean, I understand if you have like a legendary quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, you want to pay him big bucks, but if you need teammates and he's taking up most of that salary cap, I know he's legendary. He's so insanely talented, but if you're hurting your team that way, is it really good for him to keep him?
right.
And
You got. Granted, it's hard too because let's just say they don't keep Kyler Murray. They're gonna have to go get another rookie quarterback and do the whole process all over again. And you have to hope you find someone with the same exact intangibles that Kyler Murray has because you've built your entire offense around him.
yeah, it's just tough for teams at this point. I mean, you want to pay your quarterback, but you don't have free agency money like a lot of teams do. The Saints are in cap hell. They did pay Drew Brees a lot of money
Yeah.
as well, but they still kind of built a team around him. And talking about Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, the Chiefs and their team, with him taking a big salary cap, a big name on that defense, is potentially leaving.
Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu, we kind of went over him a little bit. This Chiefs defense was ranked 19th in the league last year, and you're potentially losing your best player on defense, which doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrann Mathieu has been a really solid safety for years, and
Yeah.
he just it was a fresh start for him in Kansas City, and he just stepped up his game so much, and that's why they've been to the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, and why they didn't been to the playoffs the last
Yeah.
3 or 4 straight years, and all the way to the AFC Championship game, because that defense always had a good safety. They've had players around them, and they've also had Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, their defense, I'm afraid, whether they keep Tyrann Mathieu or not, it's going to need a complete rework. They're also a team in cap hell, kind of, and in order to get it right, they almost have to rebuild. They almost have to draft all defense.
Yeah, the Chiefs defense, I think in Chris Jones, they still have Chris Jones, so I think that D-line might be good next year.
Yeah, that's good
But
for the D line.
yeah, but and that DB sense and that back safety sense, I think they're gonna need some work on that this year. And who knows? He'll look. Andy Reid's an amazing coach, so he'll probably find a way to do something.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Chiefs is they are offensively driven. So their offense is designed to just put up an insane amount of points. So that way, if their defense can't hold up, their offense is continuously scoring. They're not happy with 17 points or 21 points. They're trying to hit 40, 42, 48. Like they're trying to rack up the score all the way.
Good example: Chiefs Bills playoff game.
Yeah.
Their
Perfect
defense
example.
couldn't
They didn't
stop
care if the Bills
anybody.
scored. They just needed 13 seconds left.
Literally,
If you let them get in the end zone with at least 13 seconds left, we'll be golden.
That's why the offense is so good. But that Chiefs defense, they need to get work done because Patrick Mahomes can't carry his team forever. You saw that in the Super Bowl when he had no online. He got an even better online this year and somehow lost to someone who had no online, which kind
Yeah.
of contradicts what happened with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
And you brought up a good point. The Chiefs, the salary cap issue with a lot of teams. Going over to the Cowboys, they might have some issues on their salary cap if they want to keep all their players. And Amari Cooper is a big name that's popped up this week, and it's been reported that he's likely to get traded or released this this offseason.
He's going to be another one. We just talked about our QB's worth $45 million a year. Is Amari Cooper worth $20 million a year?
I think Amari Cooper is worth that money. I think he's still a very viable receiver. He's only 27.
Yeah.
He's so young right now. I know he didn't have the best season, and CeeDee Lamb kind of took over the starting role this year. But Amari Cooper's still a dynamic receiver. He can still play ball. He can still do everything that Amari Cooper did.
This is going to be an interesting guy to watch. There's a good bit of teams that have interest in him. Just to name a few, the Dolphins, the Bears, the Chiefs, and the Patriots. The Chiefs are going to be one. How do you really afford him? Especially, we'll talk about it a little later, but Tyreek Hill, they're kind of talking about contract extensions with him. But a really good fit would be the Dolphins, especially if they're trying to make sure Tua's the guy. Get him a nice, solid number one receiver. They have a decent core right now, but Amari Cooper would only strengthen it, and you'll know if Tua's the guy.
Yeah. That Dolphins team would definitely, on the opposite side of Jalen Waddle, that would be a really good receiving core if they get Amari Cooper. The Patriots also have so much cap space that they can afford him easily, and I think they've been looking for that receiver forever. They drafted. I know they drafted the receiver they did, but he hasn't really been showing. N'Keal Harry, he hasn't really been showing up lately, and he didn't have a good year this year. So I don't think they are happy with him. I don't think they want to stick with him as number one.
That's a good outlook on it. I know the other team we mentioned, the Bears, if they don't retain Allen Robinson, which I don't know, that's kind of an iffy one for me too, the Bears. Allen Robinson's probably cheaper than Amari Cooper. I don't think Allen Robinson's as good as Amari Cooper, and it's kind of hard to tell because Amari Cooper has had a decent quarterback throwing him the ball. Like I said, Dak Prescott was in my top 10. He's definitely top 15. I don't know if he'd be in your top 15 or not, but in my opinion, he's definitely top 15. I can see why people take him out of the top 10. He's kind of inconsistent sometimes, and he's another one of them quarterbacks that he can't always put the team on his back. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. So I can understand if he's not in your top 10. But Allen Robinson, he's only had Blake Bortles, Mitchell Trubisky. We went over this last week. The quarterbacks he's had throwing the ball, and I missed out on one of them. I forgot Nick Foles. He was one of them that was throwing him the football too. And so we don't know really how good Allen Robinson can be, but Amari Cooper, as of right now, is better.
I definitely agree with you, and I would put Dak Prescott in my top 15 for sure. He's just a really good quarterback, and he can lead his offense. You've seen that this year. He led him to the playoffs and everything. And Amari Cooper, whatever team he goes to, he's just gonna be an instant fix for that team. The Bears would obviously need him with a developing quarterback in Justin Fields, and I think Justin Fields would love him. And going back to the Patriots, they decided they're not gonna franchise tag J.C. Jackson, who had just an amazing year. He had like 10 or 11 interceptions this year, and he's likely to get released as well. So I mean, if you have so much cap space, I'm pretty sure they'd like to restructure him, but it's been reported that he's likely to get released, and I don't see a an easy solution. I don't see why they would let him go.
I did see that. I seen a report saying that J.C. Jackson was a luxury item and not a needed item in their defense. But J.C. He's an awesome player. I don't know. He'd be in my recipe for my defense.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Stephon Gilmore. Granted, Stephon Gilmore didn't have the same good years this year. It's only his first year with Panthers. He didn't have that amazing season like he's had with the Patriots. So, but I kind of disagreed with them letting Stephon Gilmore go too, because Stephon Gilmore played so well for them,
Yeah.
and just
It's also Bill Belichick is kind of weird because he always has these players that are so good, and as soon as they leave the Patriots, they turn into dog water.
it's so weird. Maybe that they're just a talented coaching staff, I bet, and they just know how to train their players. Um, And another big piece of news that we got this week, which is probably one of the biggest news we have for you guys this week, is that the Washington Commanders. I said in last podcast that the Commanders. I'm not sure if Taylor Heineke was their guy, and we'd see, because maybe they stick with him, maybe they don't. They're trying to see if he's a franchise quarterback. But they just tried to trade for Russell Wilson and were willing to give up multiple first round picks, but the Seahawks declined that.
That's so the Seahawks obviously don't want to get rid of Russell Wilson. But the fact that they were offered multiple firsts, now, granted, this year's first round pick isn't worth as much as it normally would be. But still, you're getting a first round next year. I don't pay that close attention to like future drafts and who's going to be eligible and stuff. But the fact that they turned down that many when really it's not like this year they were bidding for a playoff spot. So it's kind of weird because now I think this upcoming offseason would have been a perfect time for them to rebuild if they were going to rebuild.
Yeah, I definitely would trade your first round draft picks for like to get first round draft picks. I would definitely trade Russell Wilson. I mean, it's not like he's in his early years. He's kind
Yeah.
of starting to go into his back half of his years as a quarterback, and to just dismiss this means they have a strong interest in keeping Russell Wilson, and they really want him to. I probably stay his career in Seattle, and that's good. If you're a Seattle fan, awesome for you guys. But if you're willing to keep him, but imagine the Washington. We don't know exactly what they offered, but let's say they offered the first round pick for 20 this year, next year, and the year after. I mean, how do you let that happen if you're trying to win Super Bowls? Pete, you got a great coach
Yeah.
from Pete Carroll, but I know Russell Wilson's a really good quarterback. But in 3 years, what do you think, Russell Wilson? Do you think he wants to leave? There are some signs this year that he was saying that he might want to leave. He's a little frustrated with not getting hit too much, and he just got injured this year.
Yeah, that's there's this is also interesting from Washington's side. You can look at it as they don't believe in Taylor Heineke, or you could look at it as they think they're in position to win, so they're willing to trade to get kind of like the Rams did. Everybody knew Jared Goff wasn't really like the guy, but he obviously made a Super Bowl, and they were willing to give up multiple firsts to acquire Matt Stafford. So this could be kind of like that situation. They're in a weaker division, and they're like, "Wow, if we get Russell Wilson, we could smoke this division." So like, even though they might not think Taylor Heineke's, they might think he is the guy, but they're like, "Hey, if we can get Russell Wilson for 3 years, let Taylor Heineke sit behind him for a couple years, kind of like a Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre thing. Why not?"
Yeah, who knows? I think Seattle probably should have accepted that deal. I think it works out better for them than Washington, because who knows?
Yeah.
Russell can get hurt again this year. Gets hurt again this year if the offensive line doesn't hold up, or if something happens in 3 years. Who knows? It's the NFL, and
Yeah, literally anything can happen.
all signs were pointing towards this being a better deal for the Seahawks and Washington Commanders, because that's 3 first-round picks, and you actually did build the defense. So I understand why they're willing to give that up, because you built your team pretty well. But
Yeah, they and for the Seahawks, I don't see them even if they keep Russell Wilson, they keep DK, they keep Tyler Lockett, all these pieces, their division is so tough. I think giving up Russell Wilson for 3 first-round picks on top of your 3 first-round picks, you now have 6 players within the next 3 years when the Rams are going to decline by then. Most likely, they might not, but I mean, they've given up all their first-round picks, so they're not going to be able to rebuild. They're just going to have to keep forking out money for their players. Arizona, Kyler Murray will be off his contract. He might not stay. I think he will, but he might not stay. And then the 49ers, we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be like. We don't know if George Kittle is going to be there in 3 years. So the fact that they just gave up that much of a future, I don't know.
yeah, I don't understand why the Seahawks wouldn't. I understand you want to try to win another Super Bowl with Russell Wilson, but when you're rebuilding your defense right now, I don't think that's going to happen in the next 3 years. Who knows? Maybe you build your defense enough that they play well enough to win these next few years, but I don't see it. And that brings me to a point where something we're going to talk about a little bit today, and a lot more in a different podcast. Russell Wilson, he's had multiple cards in a video game we play called Madden, and you guys know it. And he was a really good quarterback in Madden that we played with. But we're bringing up the point because Madden, we're asking a question: what does Madden need to do better going forward?
Well, first of all, I think they need to stop focusing so much on Mutt. And that's probably never going to happen. It's their moneymaker. They make $60 to $100 selling the game originally. So that's why franchise, play now, online head to head, yard, all that. That's why that's second, because they don't make any more money once they sell the game. So Mutt's always their big focus. But I think there needs to be a balance. I don't know if they need to maybe hire on a whole nother division or something that they focus on franchise or head to head play now or whatever. I think that would be one very good thing they could do, is maybe focus on the other modes a little bit more than Madden. Or, like I said, keep the same focus, just buy another team to kind of focus on the other stuff.
Madden, the thing about Madden is a lot of people play it and buy it. You're exactly right. They focus too much on Ultimate Team. And at the end of the day, even mode that you focus so much on as a game developing like company, it doesn't make sense why there's so many things wrong inside the game as well. I mean, I know in the NFL there's cover three beaters that players run, but they don't.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, they just run a post round, they're automatically open. No. Imagine if they really wanted to be a realistic simulation game, like they've been saying they wanted to. They need to work harder on fixing these zone issues that were apparently so bad this at the beginning of this year that no one played. It was
Right.
so bad that points would go up to 40 to 50 points per game for both teams. And it's just
Yeah.
hard because there's so many glitches in the game too. You sometimes you try to tackle and you get stuck in an animation where you just shrug off of them, and sometimes it's just hard to play as a fan and you want the game to be better, and that goes for play now and franchise too. There's a lot of different glitches in there. I think franchise is a little better than Ultimate Team because Ultimate Team there's just so much stuff going on. I don't think they can handle it.
Yeah, and one more thing, and like you said, we're planning on having a guest on an upcoming show to talk more about Madden. But one more thing I want to bring up about Madden in general is franchise mode. They did a decent job from 21 to 22 after the backlash it had on social media. But what I would really like to see, I would like to see real college recruit names. When you're doing like a franchise and you're drafting, I would like to see um Gordon Love like the year he's getting drafted. I don't want to see these made up names. I also don't want to go hire a coaching staff and none of the coaches are real life coaches. I would like to, when I pull up the Jaguars, I would like to see Doug Peterson, my head coach. I would like to see my defensive coordinator, actually my real defensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of fans are still very upset, and rightfully so. I mean, there's so many things wrong with that game, but they focus on Ultimate every year because that's their moneymaker. And you were right; it's never. I don't think it's ever going to change. But at least have gameplay going forward, make it better, or make a franchise better for a lot of franchise fans. Because franchise is fun. They've improved it a little bit this year, and the problem is I've been in the Madden like beta sort of things for the last couple of years, and that the beta is actually some much smoother and much better game than the actual game itself, which shouldn't happen. That really shouldn't
Be
happen. There should be too many
yeah,
bugs or
backwards.
glitches in that. But just release the beta. Literally, just release the beta as the game, and people will like it. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about this more on a future podcast, but let us know what you guys think of this Madden, what you guys think they should change. And going back to NFL news, there was a lot this week. The Chargers are likely tagging Mike Williams this offseason.
Yeah, we were kind of unsure about Mike Williams. There was rumors that he would be dropped. There was rumors that he would be kept, and it looks like they have tagged him or they're going to.
They haven't tagged him yet, but it's very likely that they're going to. That's what the report said.
Well, that's definitely a smart decision. Um, like we were talking about earlier, their offense is not the issue. If they can keep their offense exactly the same, that's not the issue. Their issue, and there's also, I don't know if we have it on our list, but there's also rumors that Saquon Barkley might get traded there. That's obviously unconfirmed. That's just a rumor, but um, their offense isn't an issue. They need help on defense tremendously. So if they could keep their offense the exact same, but pick up some defensive players, that'd be the smartest move for them.
Yeah, Chargers do need to pick up some defensive players. I think they'd be okay with letting Mike Williams go. He had a really good year this year, and I think his breakout season a little bit this year. And
Yeah.
I think they'll be okay if they release him if they really wanted to, if they wanted to save on cap space or anything. I don't think they're in that big of a cap. They're not in. I don't think they're in a cap space situation, but
Yeah.
I think they can easily let him go and be fine because Justin Herbert's such a dynamic player, and they also still have Keenan Allen and a couple of other receivers that can step up, and they still have a running game going with Austin Eckler.
Yeah, Chargers have the second most.
Yeah. So definitely, if they wanted Mark Cooper, they could go out and get Mark Cooper if they wanted.
I know. That's one of those things. That's the only way I would disagree with tagging Williams is if they grab Amari Cooper, then yeah, go ahead and drop him.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And that Chargers team, I think it's going to be really good going forward. And moving over to the other side of the conference, the NFC, there was news today as well, news this week as well, that New Orleans Saints, they're in cap hell. And apparently Marcus Williams is testing free agency as well. Probably another circumstance because of the cap space.
Yeah, there's going to be the Saints might look a little different next year. I know they've already announced that they're not going into a rebuild. They're going to stay aggressive. Now, granted, I guess that means Winston's going to be. I don't know.
Yeah, but do teams
I mean,
really say they're gonna rebuild? They're gonna rebuild. I mean, I don't
they're
think.
going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, but teams in general, when talking to the media, I don't think they just go out and say we're rebuilding. But there's things they definitely need to rebuild as well. Like they definitely need to rebuild that whole team. Ever when Drew Brees left a huge hole in that team, and now they're in cap hell, so they can't re-sign any of these players.
Yeah, they I'm reading here. Technically, they do have enough to keep all their players if they restructure deals with all of them.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard point too, because I don't think everyone wants to restructure their deal, and some
Yeah.
people would like to get paid more if they did play well.
With that being said, we're going to move on to the Cardinals. Like I said, there's been some Kyler Murray news. There's been Christian Kirk news, but the big one that we're going to talk about is Chandler Jones will not be being re-signed by the Arizona Cardinals.
I still really think that Chandler Jones is a good pass rusher, and he's been really good for the Cardinals for a while now, and that's just another piece of the defense gone. I don't know if something of that collapsed the last two seasons in the second half. I don't know if their defense not playing good. I'm pretty sure it's both offense and defense just slumping throughout that second half season, which doesn't make any sense. It's probably coaching, something coaching wise. That's probably what we should look at.
I'm not a very big Cliff Kingsbury fan. He hasn't proven to me that he can be a great coach. He's had winning seasons, but his team's stacked. And there's been times when his play calling's been iffy. The way he's called the game's been iffy. So really losing a key player like Chandler Jones would only prove if Cliff Kingsbury is a good coach or not with how their team does in the future.
Yeah, if you're the Cardinals, I try to sign Chandler Jones at least on a 1-year deal. I mean, you can let him go after a year. He's getting older. I understand that, but that's gonna be another piece that they have to replace as well in that defense. And they're still talented, so I don't think it's gonna be too big of an issue when they release him. But I think it's still gonna hurt a little bit. And that Kyler Murray situation, it's really going to be interesting throughout this offseason. But we're going to go over to another quarterback in Derek Carr. And apparently, multiple teams are interested in him.
If I was a franchise, I'm going to name two right now that have talented rosters and need a quarterback. I would trade a lot for Derek Carr if I was in position to win now. And one team I think that's in position to win now that needs a quarterback is the Colts. They have a very talented team. They have cap space to grab a couple more pieces or to pay Derek Carr if that's what it takes. if they don't deal. Because sometimes you trade a player like the Broncos traded Von Miller, and they agreed to pay his whole salary,
Yeah.
other than like a couple $100,000. So like if they can't work something like that out, the Colts still have the cap space to pay him the whatever he's owed this year anyway. And then my team number 2, if I was the GM, is the Pittsburgh Steelers because they have a lot of key play pieces. They've got a good defense. They've got a great coach. They've just built a even bigger or better coaching staff this offseason. And really, Big Ben was the reason they weren't winning these games. And if you bring Derek Carr into that offense, they'd probably win the division again.
I definitely agree with you. There's two really good teams that need quarterbacks, and Derek Carr would be a good fit there. The Raiders, I think they want to keep. I'm pretty sure they want to keep him. So I don't think we're gonna see anything too big on that stuff going on this season. But it's something to look forward to if they don't if these teams that need quarterbacks don't fill that hole this season as well after this season. Um, it might be something they talk about. I mean, obviously teams get calls all the time and they listen to them. I mean, it's not like they don't.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate here. The Raiders are technically in a front office rebuild. And we do see sometimes where they're like, Derek Carr is not the future for our vision. I'm not saying they're saying that. I'm just saying a lot of times when you get a new GM and a new head coach, nobody's safe. I've seen it this past year with Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke, two terrible coaches, but James Robinson should have been the guy. There is absolutely no reason to draft a replacement in the first round in Travis Etienne. There was absolutely no reason for that. But sometimes when a new regime comes in, their vision is completely different than what's on the team at the moment. Maybe they want to run a West Coast offense, and they're like, oh, we can't use Derek Carr, but we might trade for, or maybe Marcus Mariota. Hey, Marcus Mariota is cheap right now. We can trade Derek Carr, get some picks, and just let Marcus Mariota run around the field all day. I'm not saying that's going to happen because that would be a terrible decision and they'd probably both get fired instantly. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. In teams front office rebuild, there's a lot of different heads around that they hire as well, and they're all different. They're all thinking different things than what the set plan was before they even came into the building. Like you said, it's too many factors is where it's a very real possibility that they say Derek Carr is not our guy. Let's get rid of him and get someone else.
I will say though, Josh McDaniels is a smart head coach. I think he's going to be a smart head coach, I should say. He's I have to watch Bill Belichick. He knows what to do, what not to do. I don't necessarily see them trading Derek Carr, but it's a cool thing to think about. Like, what if?
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting to me if Derek Carr did get traded or traded to a different team. I think it'd just really shake up things with the Raiders, but I don't see them doing that. And like you said, Josh McDaniels, very good hire, very good hire,
Yeah,
and he
that
has
was probably
been.
one of the best coaches coming out of the. I mean, really.
Yeah, exactly. And Josh McDaniels has been a name for a while, and he just hasn't left the
Yeah.
Patriots. I mean, any team could have got him. And sticking in the AFC, there was reports that the Bills, one of those playoff teams, and they just had an amazing season. They granted permission for wide receiver Cole Beasley to seek a trade.
Yeah, I personally I like Cole Beasley. I think he's a great player. Um, Kind of shocking that they would let him do that, but maybe they respect him enough as a player that they're going to let him kind of see where he wants to go. And I honestly think the best place for him, if he wanted to get traded, would be the Giants to get repaired up with Brian DeBole. Play with another young quarterback that's trying to prove himself, Daniel Jones. But Brian DeBole would be an awesome head coach for him because he's played for him for a few years now.
I think Cole Beasley has been a really good slot receiver for the Bills, and he's just been kind of like that go-to guy if you need him. I mean, kind of like Blake Jarwin as a tight end for the Cowboys, and kind of like some other players that are these check down receivers that are these security blankets. And I think Cole Beasley upped his game when he went to the Bills and just gave Josh Allen another weapon to use. I
Yeah.
and I understand the Bills accepted his request because you don't want to make a receiver unhappy. Then you're kind of forced into a situation where you have to trade him, or you can't do anything with him because he's gonna sit out a season or something like that. But
Yeah, and at the moment, his cap hit is like 6.1 million. And if you think he's going to decline, why not trade him? You know,
yeah,
he is 32.
yeah, he is getting older and older, so it makes sense. I mean, Josh Allen still has a lot of these weapons still. Um, yeah, they have Stephon Diggs and 4 touchdown man as well.
Yeah, he shocked me. I didn't even know who Gabriel Davis was.
Yeah,
I
honestly, he's kind of like Cole Beasley. He's kind of like that check down receiver that
yeah.
was getting open sometimes for that offense because Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley were doing stuff as well. And
Speaking of weapons and speaking of guys that get open, I'm going to steal your line from you. The Chiefs
exactly
are
what I was
working
gonna
on a
say.
contract extension for Tyreek Hill.
And this is obvious. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Everyone expected this to happen. Um, the only thing is, how much do you pay him when you also have the best quarterback in the NFL as you're right there on the same team?
Yeah, it's going to, I mean, I don't know their entire cap situation for years to come, but Tyreek Hill, he deserves money. He's got speed, and I foresee him having that speed for kind of like a Deshaun Jackson, where Deshaun Jackson's getting older but still fast, still able to burn a guy one on one. So I see him being able to play at the level he's at for another 5 years at least.
I think this is a no-brainer extension for Tyreek Hill. I think he's going to be the number one receiver for a while on that Chiefs offense. And Patrick Mahomes loves him, and he's just this fast receiver, but he can also moss people. He can also jump up and do stuff that
Yeah.
people his size and with his speed normally don't do.
Yeah, normally you have speed and a little bit of hands, or you have hands and not a lot of speed. But he's got it all. He really is a dynamic player. He's going to be worth whatever they give him. Um, and like I said, in the future, I see it being Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce being the three that they're like, we have to keep these guys.
Yeah, I honestly believe Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce are gonna be in Kansas City for most of their careers. I don't see
Yeah,
them
it'd be.
doing
I
anything with
wouldn't.
that.
Could you see Patrick Mahomes throwing the football and like, I don't know. I can't even think of another team.
Yeah, I don't think I could see Patrick Mahomes on another team, unless something internally happened with him and Andy Reid or something like that in an
Yeah, it's
off-world
crazy
scenario.
though. We're still going to see him. We probably still got 15 more years with him.
Yeah, and that's crazy to think about. That's actually scary for other teams as well. They're probably thinking about that as well, like saying, "How are we gonna stop this guy?" And if you're on the AFC side, because he's gonna keep going to the playoffs every year, and
Yeah.
how do we limit him? How do we do anything with him? It's gonna be frustrating for all those AFC teams trying to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's always gonna be in the conversation. Kind of like Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Even when they had Cam Newton at quarterback, we were all like, "Oh, you can't count Bill out," and that's gonna be you can't count Patrick Mahomes out.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't want to say passing a torch. I really don't think it's kind of like that. But we got Tom Brady. We for like 20 plus years, and we've always in the conversation of going to the Super Bowl, and now we have
Hmm.
another player kind of in that legendary sense in Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't say legendary yet. It's still early in his career, but
Yeah.
he's always going to be in a playoff situation unless he doesn't have a defense or if he just starts playing bad. And I don't see that happening.
And also, it could happen with how good the AFC is. The AFC is scary.
The AFC has so many teams that can compete. The Bills just compete with them toe to toe. And should have won that game. And
Yeah,
there's just plenty of other teams that can probably. I think the Bengals beat them twice, and that's crazy because they're totally two. They're actually two different teams. They're young. They weren't expected to go anywhere this year. They were just kind of like a rebuilding sort of team, and they went to the Super Bowl, and no one expected
yeah,
it.
they're like you said, we're always going to be talking about them. It's going to be during the playoffs. We're going to talk about them. Before the playoffs, we're going to talk about them. Super Bowl, we're going to be talking about them. We're talking about the Chiefs. We're still talking about the Bills versus Chiefs game. I mean, we're literally always going to be talking about the Chiefs.
Yeah, for a while now, we're going to be talking about them. And talking about contract extensions with Tyreek Hill, there's multiple other receivers that want to stay with their teams, and one of those guys is Sterling Shepard. And Sterling Shepard, he took a pay cut from $12 million to $1 to $2 million just to stay with the Giants. And that just screams commitment to your team, and that means you want to play for them. And that's a very good thing to have because nowadays, example, Odell Beckham Jr., you always can't know what a receiver is thinking. Odell Beckham Jr. became a diva during the end of his career in New York. So
Yeah. And there's not a lot of players that are willing to take cap cuts or pay cuts like that, especially to stay on a team that's not very good. I mean, they have pieces. They just got a whole new front office. They were one of the ones that got a new GM and head coach. So maybe he's like, wow, I see I've seen what DeBoll did with the Bills. I'd love to be part of that offense. Maybe he knows if he's part of that offense, eventually he's going to get a huge payday because he's going to look really good. Who knows?
yeah, it's really interesting to go down that much in salary just to stay with your team, and that just shows he has full commitment and he believes what they're doing in that building and in that locker room. And that was just a little bit of like some receivers that are getting contracts done or even taking pay cuts. There was another bit of interesting news this week when Baker Mayfield literally, not himself was told, but his agents, they were told that he will not be extended this offseason, but he will be the starting quarterback in 2022. And I hope that's not that the decision making isn't by looking what the fans said about him.
Yeah, I think so. As an organization, I think you have to put into perspective what Baker Mayfield has done for the organization. I'm not saying you should be like Philip Rivers, where you keep him for far too long, or even Big Ben, where you let him play out 2 years too many just because he didn't feel ready to retire yet. Baker Mayfield coming in, I'm going to compare him to someone that a lot of people won't like really appreciate. There's going to be a select group of people that'll appreciate this comment. Baker Mayfield to me for Cleveland is kind of like what Gardner Minshew was for Jacksonville. And hear me out when I say this. I think Baker Mayfield is slightly better than Gardner Minshew. I think the upliftment that Baker Mayfield brought Cleveland was similar to what happened in Jacksonville when you just paid $22 million for Nick Foles. He gets hurt 2 drives into the game, and then Gardner Minshew comes out and finds a way to win 6 or 7 games. And the Browns they were terrible leading up to the Baker Mayfield. I mean, Who was their coach? Hugh Jackson?
Yeah, Hugh Jackson was one of the coaches. And
Yeah, and he was. They were cheering. They wanted Baker Mayfield to start so bad, and it took Tyrod Taylor getting hurt before they go in, and then he wins them the game, and the fans go crazy. Like that's what the fans needed. The fans didn't just need a win; they needed someone with the swagger that Baker Mayfield had. They needed that to build what they have. If they don't have Baker Mayfield, they don't get OBJ, they don't get Landry, they don't get half the team that they have because he had the swagger that attracted those players to Cleveland.
and Baker Mayfield's such a big part of this organization. He's literally one of the first quarterbacks in years that's actually had a winning season and made it to the playoffs for them. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
in what,
just
22 years?
yeah, 22 years exactly. And you can't dismiss that because his shoulder got injured. I've seen all these people roasting him on social media. They're showing clips of a bad throw he made. Oh, he can't throw anymore. His shoulder was broken. His shoulder was gone. I mean, and he wanted to
Yeah,
play through it. I mean, I don't understand if these people that are roasting him are in that situation, they won't even throw it as half as far as him.
yeah, and the fact that he cared about his team so much to play hurt on a in a contract year. He could have just sat and then hoped he got a contract, but instead he put his body on the line to keep playing. And I don't know. I think it's kind of messed up the way the fans are treating him. I do like that the Browns are bringing him back another year, because I think that would be really messed up if he got hurt, played hurt, and then they just dropped him. So I do like that they're going to bring him back at least one more year to prove himself. And I really hope he proves himself. I do.
I want him to succeed. I really hope this decision isn't because fans and what they think and them listen to their fans. I really hope that isn't the case because some teams they do make mistakes
Yeah.
by listening to their fans a little bit more than they should. And going over to some other news, the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that also was trying to find a quarterback as well, and had a good quarterback in Andy Dalton for years, but they had to recently find a new one, and they found one in Joe Burrow. They are expressed interest in a free agent Toronto Armstead from the Saints. He's an offensive tackle. They're just trying to get offense Joe Burrow some line help because they saw what happened in the Super Bowl.
And really, there's from the outside looking in, I watched Joe Burrow quite a few games this year. One, he played my Jaguars. Um, Two, I watched him towards the end of the season when I was like, damn, these guys are good. And then watched him throughout the playoffs, obviously, and the Super Bowl. And there's the two big needs is they need a really good corner, but their biggest need is protecting Joe Burrow. Year one, he was out for over half the season. Year two, he got sacked 9 times in a playoff game, and he somehow won. So that just goes to show they probably would have really hurt the Titans had they been protected a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just Joe Burrow was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year and was the most pressured. I mean, how do you go to the Super Bowl like that? Even in the Super Bowl, he was sacked like 5 or 6 times, and
Yeah,
the game was a close game. It was like a 3-4 point game. It wasn't even like a 2 touchdown game. It was so close.
yeah, with the amount of pressure that he was getting. The thing is, he's to be sacked as much as he is, the fact that he stands so strong, one in the pocket or when he rolls out, he knows he's going to get hit, but he still delivers like a perfect ball almost every time.
Yeah, his trait about him that he's so tough that you want him quarterback if you want him to be your like franchise quarterback, and he's just got all those traits.
I would
And
love to see him get protected.
yeah, I would love to too. You know how dynamic that offense would be if you
I would
got some really good protection.
one really a protection, and like I said, they need to replace Eli Apple. He was a liability in the Super Bowl game. But if they protect Joe Burrow, one, you're gonna he'll stay a Bengal forever. he seems like the kind of guy that's going to stay a Bengal forever.
Yeah,
And two, he doesn't turn out like Andrew Luck.
yeah, that Andrew Luck situation was just completely different. I don't think Joe Burrow is gonna say, "Oh, I got hurt. I'm gonna go. I don't. I want to protect myself and leave my team." And um, definitely throughout this offseason, we're gonna see what the Cincinnati Bengals go through and try what they do in draft and everything and free agency to try to fix that online issue for them. Because I know that obviously they want to go back to the Super Bowl so Joe Burrow can win that ring. And they were so close to that ring. It wasn't.
Yeah,
It was
they
so
also
close.
they also have a good bit of cap space. They're in the top 5 for cap space.
Yeah, and we're gonna we're gonna switch to another team in particular, the Atlanta Falcons. And a player that emerged in his second year and is already proven that he belongs in the top 5 cornerback list. And AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell had an amazing season and still got snubbed from the Pro Bowl, even though he had 60% completion 60% completion rate when thrown to him throughout the whole season. He only allowed 400 yards throughout the whole season when he was going up against guys like Amari Cooper, and a bunch of others. He was going against Mike Evans or Chris Godwin 2 times this year.
Yeah.
And some people are sleeping on him when he was literally locking down these receivers. I mean, it's hard to find that cornerback, and he's just rising up and up. And I'm so excited to see him next year when he plays because he was so good. I didn't even worry about that side when he was playing this year.
Yeah, he definitely took a good leap. I enjoyed watching him too. I didn't watch as much as you did, but I good corners don't go unnoticed in this league.
Yeah, and Adrian Terrell is a rising corner, and he's already known as one of the top 5 corners. Um, in other news, Giants, they also, going back to the Giants, they just released Kyle Rudolph and Devontae Booker.
Yeah, the Giants, their front office is not wasting any time. They all got hired a couple weeks ago. They released Kyle Rudolph, Devontae Booker, and they're also talking about possibly picking up Mitchell Trubisky, which I personally think is a perfect move for them. You've got Daniel Jones that you're not 100% sure of. You do not, like, I'll give Daniel Jones this. One, he was drafted too high. You pick him up in the second round, there's not an issue on how good or bad he is. If he was a second or third round pick, nobody cares. But the fact that he was drafted in the first round and he hasn't performed yet, that's where the red flag comes in. But the problem with him, he's had 4 different coaches. He's had a different head coach almost every year, and he's had a different offensive coordinator every single year. So I think he's another one of them talents that are really hard to judge. And one, you've screwed up 4 years of his development.
It's interesting because Daniel Jones, he's had to go through, like you said, those offensive coordinator changes and head coach changes. I mean, how do you expect a quarterback to develop if you're always switching things up? He's gonna have to keep learning something new over and over and over again. How do you expect him to develop? It's kind of interesting because it's kind of like the same situation that Marcus Mariota had. But the only problem with Marcus Mariota was he never developed, even though he had a good, decent coaching staff and he had good players around him, and he just never developed. And after 5 or 6 years, and they literally wore him out. They for 5 6 years he was the Titans quarterback, and if
Yeah.
you can't develop in that year, you're gonna become a backup, and that's what he is in the Raiders.
Yeah, and especially when you have someone like Derrick Henry to take some of the pressure off of you in year 5 and 6. I mean, you're kind of, what do you do then? Like Daniel Jones, I'll give it to him. One, they just relieved Kyle Rudolph, which I do kind of disagree with because he was actually one of their leading receivers as a tight end. So a little weird, but he was kind of a slightly bigger cap hit. Devontae Booker, not like the end of the world for them, but if they are planning to trade Saquon Barkley, that is kind of a big deal. I mean, he's kind of one of the next guys up. So we'll see what their plans are. Maybe maybe they. I mean, you got to think in Buffalo, they had decent running backs, but they didn't have a top 5 running back. I mean, who do they have? They have Singletary and Zach Moss, and
Yeah, they have Singletary and Moss. Those are two top running backs they have. And then I think they have Matt Breida as well, I want to say.
yeah,
I could be wrong.
they had a bunch of like slightly above average running backs. They didn't have a top 5 though. I mean, they weren't running with like a Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook style. I mean, so maybe they're like, hey, we're going to be airing the ball out, which is what the Bills kind of did. So we'll see what happens, really.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Giants. I think that Kyle Rudolph thing was prove it year. He came from the Vikings. He got released by the Vikings, and now he was just a prove it year. And I don't. I mean, hey, he had a good season. So, I think he could have potentially been resigned again because they would like a tight end, a decent tight end. Because now, I mean, I guess you do have Evan Ingram, but I mean,
Yeah.
he hasn't really shown anything yet. So at the end of the day, you're stuck with just Evan Ingram again. So I mean, I think Kyle Rudolph would also took over that number 1 role, and he did a decent job with it.
And also, I'm reading Kyle Rudolph was kind of injured on and off. I didn't realize that. And he
Yeah,
did have a 2-year, $12 million deal. So I'm assuming they're saving $6 million or so off the cap by doing that.
that is decent. It was a prove it year, and if you're getting injured back and forth, there's no chance you're gonna stay on team.
Yeah, he's 32.
Yeah, no, that's definitely definitely a good reason to cut him.
Yeah, but guys, we're gonna actually wrap up the show. We had a lot of fun. I mean, this was another really fun episode to make. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I didn't even time went by so fast. I mean, it was just easy talking about all this stuff because it's so fun.
Yeah, this is definitely like football is my favorite thing ever. I mean, I like video games and stuff, but to me, football is my favorite. I could watch film for a long time. I could read reports for forever. I could watch Sports Center all day, NFL Network. Like, I could watch it all day.
I love video games too, but I could honestly, I mean, just talking about football, I mean, you could also play Madden season like for like 8 hours straight with someone else if they wanted to, just because I really love football, and it's just
Yeah,
a
I
big
find
thing.
myself on my in my free time. I watch like highlights and stuff like of different teams. Like that's the thing about like okay, so I'm a Jaguar fan. So like obviously my first choice is to turn on Trevor Lawrence highlights, James Robinson highlights, Marvin Jones highlights. But I enjoy all of football. So like even though I hate the Titans, I still watch Titan highlights so I can like learn more about the NFL. I watch Texan highlights. I watch the recap of the Texans blowing us out. Like I hate watching it because I'm like, ooh, that's cringy, but I just love football. I watch it literally all day.
Yeah, I was watching every week all if I because I'm watching Falcon games mainly, and I miss those 1 o'clock games typically. So I usually just go ahead and after the night's over, I just go watch every single game highlight from every single game, and you learn a lot more from that too. And you also learn about the team as well. So we both know a lot about all 32 teams, and that's something that brought us together for this podcast. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and something so you guys we've got a lot of social media platforms. So we're doing our best to upload every single day on YouTube Shorts. But we upload every single day, multiple times a day on TikTok. We post tweets every day. We have a Discord. We have a Spotify. We have Anchor. We have it all. We literally have it all. And I mean that's just goes to show just how much we like doing this.
Yeah, and if you guys are really enjoying the podcast and actually just want something to remember the PI podcast by, we actually do have some merch. It's not anything too crazy yet, and we don't expect anything from it, But there are some stickers that are like really, really cheap, like $5 stickers, and they're decent size too. And they have the PI podcast logo on it. It's actually pretty cool. I'd buy one myself. But yeah, if you guys
Yeah,
definitely
we
want to do that, definitely check out the link tree.
yeah, the link tree has all our links listed. We want to thank Abigail on Twitter for our overlays, our logo. If you go to our Twitter, you'll see we shouted her out. So if you guys want, if you guys are interested in overlays and stuff, be sure to check her out because she did a really good job.
She did an amazing job. It looks so awesome.
So with that being said, we will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching the PI podcast. It's E&D and Bull Mascot. We will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.